Welcome to This Explainer. So, today we are tackling a massive, pretty much inescapable part of any professional's job, and especially if you're a project manager. We're talking about managing communications and mastering the actual art of the email. Most of us were never really taught how to write a highly effective, friction-free corporate message. It's just something we're expected to know. So, let's dive into this tactical playbook together and figure out how to turn your inbox into a tool of absolute precision. Here is our roadmap for today. We'll start with the communication foundation, then write and edit effectively, essential email etiquette, formatting for your objective, and finally, my personal favorite, decoding corporate speak. Let's jump in. Starting right off with Section 1, the communication foundation. This foundational idea right here is absolutely vital. It's a great reminder that generating incredible data, building out complex project plans, or solving tough problems means absolutely zilch if you can't deliver that information properly to your audience. The delivery mechanism, your communication, is quite literally just as critical as the work itself. Because think about it, if your email is confusing, your brilliant work is just going to get completely lost in the noise. Moving right along to Section 2, write and edit effectively. What's super interesting here is how making tiny, almost invisible adjustments to your grammar can massively improve your clarity. Look, you are not Charles Dickens. He got paid by the word. You definitely do not. In business, efficient grammar is absolutely everything. We want to lean heavily on the active voice because it naturally shrinks your word count and makes it sound way more concise and authoritative. Plus, we need to completely eliminate filler words. I'm talking specifically about words like that and of. Just ditch them whenever they aren't strictly needed. This brilliantly illustrates how dropping all that fluff transforms a really bloated sentence into a sharp, confident statement. Imagine reading that first, wordy version. It feels a bit clunky, right? I am not sure that the best option. Consider all of the other options. Now look at the revised version. By simply cutting the word that and the phrase of the whole sentence just flows so much faster. It saves your reader time and instantly projects way more confidence. Now, on the flip side, looking at this incredibly messy draft, you can practically feel the friction it creates. It is just a massive block of text packed with conversational filler, way too many exclamation points, and a totally buried request. The sender actually wants 3 bullet points by noon tomorrow, but you have to go digging through a literal wall of text just to figure that out. This proves exactly why we absolutely need strict rules for our everyday messaging. If your reader has to go on a scavenger hunt for the action item, you have already failed. All right, Section 3, essential email etiquette. So keep these rapid-fire rules in the back of your mind every single time you hit compose. Always start with a crystal-clear subject line full of keywords. We are ditching the no-subject threads forever, okay? Always identify your audience logically using the to, CC, and BCC lines. Format everything cleanly using headers and bullet points. Also, please completely avoid those vague one-word replies like HYG for here you go or an FYI that has literally zero context attached to it. And this is a big one. Use spell check. Sending out emails with the wrong usage of for or for instantly damages your credibility. Finally, just respond in a timely manner. I know it sounds super basic, but mastering these habits is what actually sets you apart as a true professional. Let's look at Section 4, formatting for your objective. Whenever you are specifically requesting information or an action from someone, you absolutely must use the bluff method. That stands for bottom line up front. Do not make them read a novel to find out what you want. Give a tiny bit of context and then immediately follow this 3-step framework. Clearly define the owner of the task, the target deadline, and the specific action required. Here is a spot-on example of that concise, action-oriented format. Right there at the very top, please provide your approval by end of day tomorrow. Boom. Bottom line up front. Then, the context is beautifully broken down into 3 super simple bullet points. Finally, it closes out by reinforcing exactly why the action is needed. It leaves zero ambiguity about what needs to be approved, who needs to do it, and by when. But hey, what if your objective isn't a simple action, but instead a regular project update? For routine updates, you should really shift away from text-heavy emails entirely. Take a look at these modular visual dashboards. They're so smart because they split the technical updates from the high-level management updates. A super busy executive can just glance at the green, yellow, and red status indicators and immediately know exactly where things stand, while your technical team can still dig right into the specific data rows they actually care about. Remember, our brains process visuals infinitely faster than paragraphs. Now, let's pivot for a second to mass emails. You really have to treat these as broadcasts. Assume the folks receiving this have absolutely zero prior knowledge of the topic. You need to break the information down into bite-sized, digestible pieces. Notice how this email literally bolds the headers, what you need to know, and action needed by you. It is incredibly clear, and maybe more importantly, it makes the consequences of ignoring the email crystal clear by stating that failure to reply will actually impact their ability to receive purchase orders. No one can say they didn't know. And then we arrive at the dreaded escalation. We have all had to do it, but when it is time to pull this lever, you need to be very, very careful. Remember, an escalation is fundamentally an attempt to fix things and unblock a stalled process. It is not a prelude to war. When escalating, your tone is absolutely your secret weapon for success. You have to choose your timing, your audience, and your medium really wisely. The absolute best tactic? Always try to frame it using the help him do his job technique. Basically, frame your escalation as figuring out what resources the other person might be missing to succeed rather than just throwing them under the bus. If you handle this right, an escalation never actually feels like an escalation to the other party. Let's wrap things up with Section 5, Decoding Corporate Speak. Oh, we have all been there, and honestly, it's hilarious just because it is so painfully true. When someone types, as per my previous email, what they are really screaming is, read your emails properly, we already discussed this. When you see correct me if I'm wrong, they almost always mean, I'm not wrong, you are. A kind reminder? Yeah, that usually means I am severely losing my patience here. And perhaps the most dangerous of all, a simple, unprompted smiley face emoji might literally just be masking pure, unadulterated frustration. It's passive-aggressive, sure, but it happens every single day. So, I want you to be completely honest with yourself for a second. Which of these passive-aggressive phrases do you catch yourself relying on the most in your own inbox? And more importantly, the very next time you find your fingers hovering over the keyboard to type per my last email, how can you use what we learned today? The active voice, the bluff method, clear visual formatting to just cut the friction entirely. The next time you're frustrated, are you going to escalate or are you going to communicate?